Have you ever had one of those mornings where everything is still, almost too still, and you find yourself staring out the window not because there's something to see, but because something inside you feels unfinished? The coffee is hot. The light falls the same way it always does, and the rhythm of the day begins without asking if you're truly present in it. You move from one task to another, each one predictable. Take your pills, check your messages, water the plants, maybe turn on the news, but the questions that once lived in your mind have gone quiet. Not because they've been answered, but because they've been replaced by routine. And yet, if you listen closely, really listen, there's still a flicker of something else beneath it all. A whisper that says, I miss wonder. I miss being surprised. I miss looking at the world and asking, what else is out there? It's easy to forget that part of yourself, especially after 60, when the world keeps telling you it's time to slow down, time to let go of the unknown, time to stop reaching for more. But the soul doesn't shrink with age. It expands if we let it. And the key to that expansion isn't another book, another appointment, another routine. It's something much older, much deeper. It's curiosity, not the kind that wants facts or headlines, but the kind that wants meaning, the kind that pauses when sunlight hits the kitchen floor and asks, how did I get here? What has life been trying to show me lately? That's what this video is about. Not just curiosity as a mental exercise, but as a form of spiritual openness, as a way of staying alive from the inside out. Today, we're going to walk through 5 quiet but powerful reasons why keeping a sense of wonder might be the most important thing you can do for your spirit right now. Whether you're retired, newly widowed, feeling stuck, or simply unsure of what comes next, this is for you. These aren't just ideas. They are invitations to feel something again, to open a door inside that you thought was closed for good, to remember that even in a life that feels familiar, there are still new questions worth asking, new ways of seeing the ordinary, new insights waiting quietly beneath the surface. So as we move through each part, notice what stirs, notice what resists, notice what feels like a forgotten memory of who you once were before the world told you to settle. Because spiritual growth doesn't happen through answers. It begins in the moment you become willing to ask again, what else is possible? If that question still lives somewhere inside you, even quietly, even barely, then the journey hasn't ended. It's just entering its most honest chapter, and your spirit, far from being done, might be more ready than ever to begin again. Let's begin with something so simple, so quiet, that most people don't even realize when they've lost it. Curiosity is the breath of the spirit. It's what keeps your inner world alive long after the noise of the outer world has quieted down. And without it, something in the soul begins to settle. Not in peace, but in stillness that turns into weight. It starts slowly. You stop asking questions. Stop seeking new views. You tell yourself you've seen enough, learned enough, felt enough. But something deep inside you knows this isn't peace. It's pause. And pause can last years if no one dares to move again. Linda is 71. She once loved thunderstorms. She'd sit by the window with a mug of tea and feel alive in the chaos of it. The wind, the flashes, the sound of something bigger than herself. But lately, even the storms made her feel nothing. Until one evening, she looked up at the sky and noticed how the lightning lit up the underside of the clouds, golden, not white. She stared at it for minutes and quietly said to herself, have I always done that? That question wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic, but it cracked something open. For the first time in months, she felt connected to the sky, to the present, to her own spirit. That's what curiosity does. It doesn't roar. It taps. It doesn't demand answers. It simply whispers, notice this. And if you do, something inside starts breathing again. Neuroscience confirms what the soul has always known. When we experience curiosity, the brain releases dopamine, the same chemical associated with joy, motivation, learning. It keeps the mind agile, but more than that, it keeps the heart interested in being here. Even small questions matter. I wonder what lives under that leaf. I wonder who that person was in the photo at the thrift store. I wonder why I stopped listening to music when I cook. These aren't distractions. These are invitations. Because when we stop being curious, the world becomes flat. But when we begin again, even quietly, even in solitude, the world begins to shimmer. And it's not just about beauty. It's about feeling your own presence return. Curiosity isn't just about discovering what's outside. It's about rediscovering what still stirs inside, what still asks, what still reaches, what still remembers how to feel amazed. And that amazement is not reserved for youth. It's what keeps the soul from aging. It's what keeps you alive in the truest sense. So if life has felt gray lately, not from sadness but from sameness, ask yourself, when was the last time I let myself be surprised? Not shocked, not overwhelmed, just gently surprised. That's where spiritual aliveness lives. Not in the answers, but in the moments you let yourself wonder again. The second reason curiosity matters so deeply as we grow older is this. It's what opens the heart to connection. Real connection. Not just casual conversation or polite small talk, but the kind of presence that makes people feel seen. Without curiosity, relationships often slide into repetition. We stop asking our partners how they really feel. We assume we know what our friends will say before they say it. We start to live beside people instead of truly with them. And quietly, the distance grows. But curiosity interrupts that drift. It asks, who is this person today? What matters to them now? What's changed in them? And in me, since we last really looked at each other? Jim, 76, used to argue with his daughter over everything. Politics, values, even how she raised her kids. One afternoon, sitting on the porch, she said something that triggered the usual tension. But instead of pushing back, Jim paused. And then, almost without thinking, he asked, "What made you feel that way?" It wasn't a trick. It was genuine curiosity. And her face changed. Her voice softened. They talked for 2 hours without raising their voices once. Curiosity doesn't mean agreement. It means presence. It means asking instead of assuming. Listening instead of preparing to reply. And that changes everything, not just in relationships, but in how we relate to the sacred. Because if we can't stay open to each other, how can we stay open to something greater than us? Whether you believe in God or spirit or something you can't quite name, spiritual connection always begins with curiosity. It's the space between certainty and humility. It's the quiet decision to ask, what if I don't know everything? And then sit with that question, not in fear, but in reverence. Curiosity is the seedbed of compassion. It allows us to wonder what life feels like for someone else, to see pain we've never known, to honor stories we've never lived. And when we practice that kind of seeing, something softens in us, something real. You don't need to agree with someone to be curious about their heart. You don't need to understand everything to sit beside someone in their mystery. And when we allow for mystery in others, we make space for it in ourselves too. That's where love grows, in the unknown. Not in control, not in knowing what comes next, but in the willingness to meet each moment, each person, as if we've never seen them before. Because maybe we haven't. Maybe they've changed. Maybe we have. And maybe the sacred shows up most clearly when we stop looking for it in answers and start finding it in questions. So if you felt disconnected lately, not just from people, but from your own sense of meaning, ask yourself, when was the last time I approached someone with real curiosity? Not to fix them, not to teach them, just to understand. Sometimes that's the most spiritual thing we can do. Open our hearts and listen like it's the first time. The third reason curiosity matters so much in this stage of life is that it has the quiet power to turn the ordinary into the sacred. It doesn't take you somewhere new. It brings you back to where you already are and helps you see it differently. So many people after retirement say the same thing. The days blur. The calendar is full of sameness. Breakfast, errands, maybe a nap, maybe a show. But it all begins to feel like background noise. And then something happens. You notice the way the light hits the floor at 3 p.m. You watch the way your hands move when you fold laundry. You hear a bird you can't name singing in the hedge, and you stop. Not for long, just long enough to feel it. I've missed this. Curiosity is what makes those moments possible. It's not just a thought, It's a tension with wonder. It's the feeling of letting something small become meaningful. And that kind of attention, when practiced often enough, becomes a form of prayer. Not the kind with words, the kind with presence, the kind that says this moment matters, even if no one sees it. Caroline, 69, started taking photos on her phone every morning. Not of anything special, just the way the tea steamed in her mug, or the cracks in the sidewalk on her walk, or the shadows the trees made on her kitchen wall. I started noticing beauty in places I used to ignore, she said, and it made me feel like I was back inside my own life again. That's what curiosity does. It brings you back into your own life. Because routine isn't the enemy. The absence of presence is. The absence of wonder. The slow drift into numbness that feels like peace but isn't. You don't need to chase excitement to feel alive. You need to see what's already here. And that takes practice. Curiosity is a way to practice being here. Fully, deeply, softly. It turns a meal into a meditation, a walk into worship, a conversation into communion. And in that space, where life is no longer background, but foreground, something sacred unfolds. Not loud, not grand, just quietly, as if the Spirit had been waiting all along for you to look up and say, I see you. So if your days have started to feel too familiar, if your routines have gone dull, if you find yourself forgetting what day it is, not because you're aging, but because every day feels the same, curiosity might be your way back. Back to presence, back to beauty, back to the part of you that still wants to feel touched by something unseen. Because the sacred doesn't always arrive in church pews or mountaintop visions. Sometimes it arrives in the steam on your window, in the breeze through a curtain, in the slow way your heart softens when you remember this is still your life. And it's not over yet. The fourth reason to remain curious isn't about the world outside you. It's about the world within. Curiosity brings you back to yourself. It opens doors you didn't even know were still there. After a certain age, people begin to say things like, I've already lived my life, or this is just who I am now. But those are statements of fatigue, not truth. The Spirit doesn't stop growing because the calendar says it should. It stops when we forget we're still allowed to change, to stretch, to become. And the key to that becoming is simple. Asking what else might be possible for you. Not 20 years ago, but today. There's something sacred in realizing you haven't finished becoming yourself. That you don't need to reinvent everything, but you can rediscover something. A curiosity about who you are now, who you've never been, and who you might still become. William was 75 when he took a watercolor class at the community center. He'd never painted in his life. The first few weeks, he felt clumsy, foolish even. But one afternoon, as he brushed blue into the paper, he suddenly teared up. I didn't know I had this inside me, he said. That moment changed how he saw his entire life. Not because of art, but because of awakening. Curiosity is what made that awakening possible. It gave him permission to open a door inside himself that had been closed for decades. And that's what's so often missing in later life. Not love, not time, not energy, but permission. To keep discovering. To start over in small ways. To be new, even now. You might not want to learn a language or climb a mountain, but maybe you want to understand your own story differently. Maybe you want to revisit a part of you that went quiet long ago. Music, writing, baking, prayer, friendship. Curiosity can lead you there. It's not about ambition. It's about intimacy with your own soul. Because even if you've raised children, built a life, made mistakes, forgiven others, survived loss, there's more inside you. Not in a self-help way, in a holy way. The truth is, most of us have spent a lifetime becoming what others needed. Curious living is how we finally ask, what do I need now? What brings me alive? And when that question is asked honestly, something old begins to fade. The heaviness, the resignation, the story that says this is all there is. And something new begins to rise. You, as you are now, whole, wondering, becoming. So what does it all add up to? 5 reasons, 5 quiet truths, and 1 deep invitation to return to a part of yourself that still wants to be awake. Curiosity isn't just a pleasant habit. It's a lifeline. It keeps the spirit from drifting. It keeps the heart soft. It keeps the mind from folding in on itself. We began with the idea that curiosity is the breath of spiritual aliveness. It's what reminds you that you're still capable of wonder. Then we saw how it opens the heart to others, to deeper conversations, to grace. We talked about how it brings the sacred into everyday moments, transforming routine into presence. How it gives you back to yourself, revealing parts of you that were never gone, only waiting. And finally, we saw how it allows you to keep becoming, not someone else, but more deeply who you truly are. And now here you are, at the end of this reflection. Maybe something stirred in you. Maybe it didn't. Maybe you're still sitting with your arms crossed, wondering if any of this really matters. But if you've made it this far, I believe a part of you knows it does. Because somewhere inside you, there's still a flicker of what if. What if I tried something new? What if I listened more? What if I looked at my own life again with open eyes? Not because it's easy, not because it changes everything overnight, but because it makes you feel again, makes you pay attention, makes you present. And presence, in the end, is where the sacred lives. Not in perfection, not in certainty, but in the quiet willingness to still be moved. You don't need to start big. You don't need to change your life. You just need to start noticing it again, asking small questions, following gentle pulls, sitting with what feels unfamiliar instead of shutting it out. Maybe today, it's the way your dog rests his chin on your foot, the scent of toast, the sound of your neighbor's wind chime. Maybe it's wondering what the sky looked like on the day you were born. Maybe it's simply this, sitting in silence and asking, what part of me have I forgotten to feed? The world hasn't stopped being beautiful. You haven't stopped being needed. And curiosity hasn't stopped being your way back to meaning. If this video brought something to life in you, like it, share it, subscribe. Not because we need more clicks, but because someone else out there might be sitting in the same stillness you were, and your sharing might be their spark. Leave a comment. Tell us what you're still curious about, what you're learning, what helps you stay open. Because this space isn't just about information. It's about remembering that growth doesn't end. The soul doesn't retire. And life, real, vibrant, spiritual life, doesn't stop asking, are you still with me? Thank you for being here. Thank you for being with us. Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments. Give this video a like, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Watch more of our inspiring and thoughtful videos. We're here to grow with you every step of the way.